First up, though, let's talk about elections. No, not the one going on here in the UK ahead of July the 4th. Polling day has already arrived in Europe. Today and Friday, Saturday and Sunday, the whole of the European Union are going to the polls. We'll get the results of all those elections after polls close on the last day on Sunday at around 10 p.m. We're going to find out what the Europeans have decided and what they want in terms of who to elect to the European Parliament as MEPs. But what is very much looking interesting and very different from where we are here in the UK right now is that the polls suggest it is parties on the right who are benefiting rather than, as we're seeing here in the UK, a party on the left. Well, let's talk about this with Steven Woolfe. He's a former MEP himself on the Brexit Party and also a migration expert. A good afternoon to you, Steven.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thanks so much for joining us. It is fascinating, isn't it, that a lot of the issues in our own election here are also massive big issues in Europe and are massively coming to the fore for these European elections. And the thing you've been talking to us about for so many years now is the number one issue for a lot of people: immigration, immigration, immigration.
Well, certainly immigration is now the top of the agenda in almost all the European countries polling. And the reason for that is very simple. Last year, there was nearly around 3 million immigrants that had come into the European Union. About 1 million of those were illegal. And of course, every country is now being expected, due to a Commission proposal, to either accept a certain number of immigrants at a cost of around €60,000 each, or have to pay the European Commission £60,000 so that they can give it to the countries that take it.
Yeah.
And as a consequence of that, this is going to be a really exciting time. In a way, you could almost say, I wish I was there so you could see the Euro anti-EU populists begin to succeed. And it's estimated, Julia, that about 9 countries will see anti-European populists come first: Austria, Belgium, the Czech Republic, France, Hungary, Italy, Netherlands, Poland and Slovakia, but come second in a further 9, including countries such as Spain and Portugal, where you'd never expect it.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely fascinating. I mean, France has been the crucial one there. Emmanuel Macron is looking like he's not going to have a majority, dealing with to deal with in the National Assembly either. I mean, this is the thing. We have seen this shift to the right. But it's very interesting that there's been the shift to the right in Europe on this issue, facing exactly the same issues that we've got here in the UK. And yet we have seen this massive shift to the left, it would appear. I mean, such as a lot of people probably shouting at the radio right now saying, left, right, we've kind of, all the parties seem to be on, the main parties seem to be on the left now anyway on this issue. But why do you think it's so different in Europe? Is it because of the voting system? So if you want something different, you can vote for a party that will still get seats in the European Parliament, even though they can only get 5-6 percentage points in the polls. Whereas in the UK, with first past the post, then people say, well, it's kind of, a lot of people say it's a toss-up between the only 2 big parties in town.
I believe it's exactly that now. And then there's another aspect about it in terms of the population who are voting. In Europe, much more of the younger people, those below the age of 30, are beginning to support parties like Geert Wilders in the Netherlands or Marie Le Pen in France. And certainly they are mass of the voters supporting Fidesz in Hungary.
But wait a minute, but these are the people, these are the candidates, the parties which are vilified in the mainstream media. Certainly here, I imagine also a lot in European newspapers and media as well, as far right extremist. And we're constantly told that we're horrible bigots because we voted for Brexit here, but aren't the Europeans nice and civilised? But they are garnering huge levels of support.
They are garnering huge levels of support. And the question is, what is actually being far right? Far right seems to be either you believe in the nation state controlling your borders and having a sensible immigration policy that doesn't allow people traffickers to take control of your immigration policy, or those in the European Union. And that's why they can vote en masse through, as you said, through proportional representation. And I believe that's what's holding them back here in the UK. If you hear what is the mantra of the Conservative Party, not that we have a positive message going forward, but don't vote for Nigel Farage or Reform because you'll let Labour in.
Yeah.
That's because we have first past the post. But if you had proportional representation, that argument disappears.
Except,
and therefore...
see, this is where, I mean, I completely understand those arguments and that. I want people's votes to feel that their votes count no matter what. There is also the issue when you have a PR system, you end up with a system where the parties get to decide the list of candidates. You don't have that direct link with the constituency. There are downsides to that. You give more control to the party bureaucracies.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not saying that this is the perfect scenario, but the question is, why are people voting more and more for parties that are seen as anti-European or those regarded by the left as being far right? I would say those who are being more populist and listening to the people is perhaps a better description. But that is because they have the opportunity through the voting system. It does give greater power then to the leaders of those parties. Without a doubt, Geert Wilders, Marie Le Pen are in charge of those parties because they can shift their candidates around as much as they want. So you don't get that much dissent. And when it does, then the whole thing collapses.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to watch. So in terms of whether anything changes as a result of these votes, we've seen the impact of European elections, UKIP, Brexit Party here in the UK. I mean, basically forcing I guess, to get a referendum on the EU, which we voted to leave, and then actually forcing out Theresa May. That power. We no longer have that through European elections. But what impact will it actually have on the existing governments of Europe?
I think it's going to have a massive impact actually this time round, particularly if, as the estimates see, those of the central conservatives, the ECR, that's like our own Conservative Party, which will contract but still be the largest party, joining those right-wing parties of Fidesz and Geert Wilders. And it will have policy implications in probably three areas. Without a doubt, immigration.
Yeah.
Because immigration is coming back to the Commission, and normally the European Parliament works as a coalition of parties that agree the language. This time, I think a lot more restrictive elements will come into it. A second area, Julie, which I think is going to be very important for us to be listening to, is the fact that the Greens will lose votes at this election, and the parties that have been opposing the kind of green agenda, the growth of this green agenda, are going to also be in control. And they're going to change that too. Not much on foreign policy, I think, either. But also the final one will be on this idea of liberty. Over the past few years, the Commission has been attacking Hungary, attacking Poland, and trying to put fines on them. I don't think they'll be able to get away with that kind of civil liberties policy area this time around. So three key areas could have control by those who are not part of the establishment.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Can I just ask you just one final question about the elections here in the UK? A latest poll from YouGov showing that since Nigel Farage has gone back to the sort of the fray, saying he's standing as an MP in Clacton, that and back as leader of Reform UK, YouGov have put the Reform UK party just 2 percentage points behind the Tories. Tories on 19%, which is unbelievably low on this poll. 17 percentage points for Reform. Labour, of course, way ahead. Lib Dems are further behind as well. What do you make of that? Do you think that things could change a lot more before election day?
I'm not surprised at these numbers. These are the sort of numbers that have been hovering around since 2015 when UKIP got 3.5 million votes, but no seats at that particular election, unless you look at Clacton, which is particularly the one that Nigel's going for. I think the importance here is those numbers start to put in play probably 3 seats for Nigel Farage himself, Lee Anderson, and possibly.
Don't mention any more candidates. I have to read out candidate seats, so I won't. Candidates, so I've stopped you there. I will have to stop you there. Thank you very much indeed, Steven Woolfe, former MEP and migration expert. Thank you for that.